Okay, guys, so I'm just going to get my notes up here. Closing arguments. The went out, jury deliberated, very short time. And then the verdict. So I'm going to go over what I will tell you. Well, let me make sure that you guys are here before I go into all of that. Hang on. Make sure. Oops, that didn't take. Okay. All right, so, hi GB, hi Whisper to Me, Kathy, Muka, Jenny Anderson, we'll have two. What, did anybody here watch this? Did you watch it on Court TV? What's the matter?
So what is this?
I don't know what I'm talking about. It's in the title, Jimmy. What is this? What does this say? Okay. Hi, Nana Patty. And by this, Jimmy wants me to clarify that it's the Michelle Boat trial. Hi, Tracy B. Did you watch the closing arguments? Hi, Liza Ward, Carol Boyce, Sean. You should have seen his face. He's like, what's this? Okay. Closing arguments, the verdict, and all that good stuff. Earthbound Spirit did. I have to say, the last two trials, okay, what was it? The one before this was not the Addie one. Was it the Addie one? Or was it Aid? I think it was Addie. I think it was the Addie trial. So the one, two, or maybe it was Aid. I think it was both of them. Had the most lackluster closing arguments. I don't understand. A closing argument is supposed to be a dramatic end, especially if, you know, they're trying to paint this picture of this story. The prosecutor should have something where people are not falling asleep, okay? And that's what was happening. I was like taking notes and found myself like drifting off or zoning out. It was really beyond boring because the whole closing argument sounded like all he was doing was giving instructions. And it again sounds like a college lecture or some kind of a lecture in law school, but not a closing argument. And it's like they had no passion for their case. The prosecutor didn't have, you know, they should have like this passion to get justice for the victim. And I'm not saying that they didn't want justice for the victim, but I'm saying it didn't come across with that passion that it should. Like if you remember in the Tim Jones trial, that prosecutor, that closing statement made you cry. That closing statement made you feel the impact of what this man did, the 5 lives that he took. You didn't find this in these other trials. These last 3 trials are just sounds like they're reading directions. Did anyone else that saw that feel that way? I wake up. Jury instructions 101. Okay, GB, okay. Totally agree, Susie B said. All right, so they were hell to get through. And then when you thought, wow, that was pretty bad, that was the prosecution's closing statement, the defense attorney, okay, it wasn't the female defense attorney that's been very active next to Michelle. It was this guy. And he was all over the place. He was all over the place. He had a legal pad. At times he was just like this. All right, and, oh, wait a minute, I forgot something. Let me see, I forgot something. Let me go back here. Yeah, well, you know about Elmer Fudd? He brought up Elmer Fudd, the Hulk, And I haven't. I didn't bring my notes yet. There's some other reference, and they're just put in there. They don't make sense. He doesn't finish. Sometimes he doesn't finish a thought. Sometimes he just goes off into something else. He talks in circles a lot of the time. Both the prosecutor somewhat was not clear on certain things. Okay, when they were talking about reasonable doubt, and when they're talking about the first degree and the manslaughter. But this defense attorney, oh my gosh. I'll just call him a slaughterer. It was crazy. It was beyond long. It really had there was no flow to it. I don't even think, it wasn't like the guy even practiced it or anything. It sounded like he wrote down his notes in the car and thought like, well, I'll just wing this. It was horrible. But let me go through what happened. Elmer Fudd, yeah, Vicky, I'm not joking. I wish I was not. Okay, let me get my notes up. And then tonight I have, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about tonight. But I think you're going to be interested in it. So we're going to go to this one. I'm just going to the end of my notes because I take them all in the same thing, so the whole trial is in there. Okay, so the judge was giving some jury instructions, and then the closing arguments, the prosecutor got up now, and it was not Ed Bull, okay, it was the other. He said, Mr. Bull told each of you that this case can be thought of as the case of a woman scorned and seething. The brutal murder of Tracy was not the result of anger, but, the brutal murder of Tracy was the result of anger, malice, and it achieved what the defendant wanted to by eliminating the woman she thought was standing in her way of getting back with her husband, Nick Boat. But your job is to seek the truth. You are truth seekers, not doubt seekers. And the defense is the exact opposite. So this poor jury just sits through this thing that's unbelievably boring, but makes it even more confusing to them because they both say such contradictory things. And I'm not just talking about like discounting evidence. They're talking about the whole legal process and how the jury is supposed to examine evidence, and it's nuts. So the prosecutor says, your job is not to go through the evidence and say, hold on, let me just make this a little larger here. That's probably my problem that I put, what are all of our reasonable doubts? You're to look at the evidence in this case, and that will either convince you if the defendant is guilty or not. The purpose of this proceeding is to do justice. So let's look at the highest charge. Then he explains that, as you go down, it's like a ladder. You have murder in the first degree is the highest charge, and then the fifth is manslaughter. And the ones under that, you don't have to go in. If you decide that the evidence has shown and that she's guilty of first degree murder, you don't have to go through anything below that. Okay, you just stop there. That's what he was trying to get across to them. And then he said the highest charge, murder in the first degree. On May 18th, the defendant stabbed Tracy with a knife. Tracy died as a result of being stabbed. The defendant acted with malice and forethought. The defendant acted willfully, deliberately, premeditatively, and with specific intent to kill Tracy. And those are all of the elements of first-degree murder, and that is what their evidence has proven. So only 4 things the state must prove to be guilty of first degree, to find someone guilty of first degree murder. And the prosecution has the burden of the proof. So you need to be firmly convinced after full and fair consideration of all the evidence that they've proven their case in order to convict her on those 4 key things. And if you are firmly convinced, then you don't have a reasonable doubt. The instructions tell you what the law is, and you should rely on those, and only those, and not on any other preconceived notions. You're here to decide if proof has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And then he talks about hesitation. If you have a discussion and disagreement among the jurors when you're deliberating, that doesn't mean that there's reasonable doubt, because if you're saying that's hesitation, so that he was going through that. Because the state has the burden of proof, and he is going to go through all the ways that they proved, the evidence shows each and every one of those 4 elements. And we have to bring you more than just saying that she stabbed Tracy, the defendant. The defendant admitted that she stabbed Tracy with that knife. But the question is, why? How? The state has shown you overwhelming evidence. At this point, the first element is she's the one who did this. It's not someone else. And then he goes through, he puts up these little slides. The rubber gloves. You have video evidence. You're going to have DNA evidence we've shown you, to go through to show these 4 elements. Tracy's blood all over that Cadillac. Her choker on the Cadillac. The defendant's hair in Tracy's hand. Blood spatter evidence. Bruises on the defendant's arm that were caused by committing this terrible crime. The second element, that she died as a result of being stabbed, is uncontested. Okay, the medical examiner told you that Tracy died by multiple sharp force injuries. It's unlikely that the state, would not prove that element. We have the damage that was done to Tracy's heart, and this is essential. The last 2 elements, that she acted willfully, premeditatively, and with the intent to kill. Both so tightly connected. As I was trying to formulate the argument, that certain evidence proves both elements, and I will talk about them together, not liking to repeat myself, he said. So malice, afterthought, malice is a state of mind that we act out of hatred. And you'll wait till you hear what the defense attorney, these are old-fashioned terms, and nobody uses this. And the death of Tracy was a result of Michelle Boat's anger, malice, and jealousy. Some might say she acted with actual hatred or with an evil or unlawful purpose. You do not have to agree if it's evil or hatred. You can have some jurors that believe it's, one or the other. It doesn't have to be in total agreement. Malice may be established by evidence of actual hatred, deliberate or fixed intent to do harm. Malice aforethought, the defendant had a fixed purpose of doing harm to Tracy. Willful means it's intentional, not accidental. Okay, and then you're going to deliberate on this, right? This was premeditated, right? She pondered what she was going to do. Deliberation. Okay, so when they're in deliberations, what he said is this premeditation. There's not a set time for it. So it doesn't say, well, it has to have preceded the event by this much time. It doesn't have to, is what he said. It can happen, it can just happen right preceding the act. So determining the defendant's specific intent in any jury is, in any case, it requires you to decide what she was thinking when the act was done. You're not required to believe what the defendant says it was. Therefore, you should consider the facts and evidence surrounding when you decide what was the defendant's mindset, right? It's not unreasonable to assume, for instance, that when a person fires a gun at another person, that they're intending to do that person harm. If a person has an opportunity to deliberate and uses a dangerous weapon, such as the knife, it's certainly capable of inflicting death. You can infer that the woman was using malice and she was deliberate in her intention to kill. You're allowed to make a reasonable inference that she made a decision to kill because she was filled with malice and anger. And she used that malice and anger with intention to kill Tracy. Let's look at the evidence in this case now, he says. Okay, so there's a deep and long-standing hatred. She had and a hatred of Tracy. And she told us so much in her words by the defendant. She was searching her. She was stalking her. She prepped for this attack. She had her own admission from the stand that she had anger towards Tracy. And details of the attack must be looked at to determine her intent. So the long-standing hatred, and then they played they had a terrible tech issues that wasn't coming through the speakers. And then he said the words are here. They couldn't get it to play at all. So they said you have a flash drive when you go back, but the words were that she was leaving a voicemail for her husband to say, tell Tracy she messed with the wrong mama, okay? She wanted Nick to tell Tracy that she was messing with a tiger, the prosecutor said. The message was left on that machine filled with hatred, and it was months before the actual act itself. In the defendant's own words, you can hear the hatred. The defendant threatened Tracy over Facebook, okay? She sent her messages, and some of the messages sent, you've seen, and one of them, I will be there when you open your eyes in the morning, I will be there when you close them at night, and I'm going to be there in your head, is certainly implied from that, okay? He isn't yours now, and he will never be. Send him home because that's where he belongs. If you don't, I will be on you soon enough. So that's showing there's a prep of a plan because you better let him go or I am coming to get you. And then she sends a picture of herself staring at Tracy. The admission of the defendant that she confronted Tracy and Nick in April was after she went for mental health treatments. And she said, once again, I'm going to tell you one time he's mine. She was following them around. She was threatening Tracy. And the neighbor who saw this said that they could only make out as she was actually killing Tracy, the only thing they could make out was that she said that he is mine. Her searching for and stalking Tracy on May 18th, it's going to tell you a lot. Those videos, so they started to play all the videos, the 6:15 when she was in Culver's and then decides to leave, sees the truck at the laundromat, then follows her down to Burger King, parks a good distance away, but you see the cars actually pass each other, well, not pass each other, the ones in the parking lot, and Tracy comes through with the truck, and it's really close. So they're saying that she definitely was staring her down. She could see there's nobody in that passenger seat, so she knows she's following just Tracy. Follows them all the way to the Vermeer parking lot. She says down the stand that she moved her car because she was trying to straighten it out in the parking lot, but we see that was an absolute lie. So that goes to her credibility because she totally pulls out of that space and parks in a different direction. And let's see here. She was there to see if she saw Nick or Tracy. She said, we don't know if she used them, but we know, okay. Oh, the binoculars she had shows, like I said, they went through all the surveillance videos that she sat in that parking lot for 35 minutes. She pulls and backs up, not because she wanted to straighten her car out. She pulls in and backs up because she didn't want to be spotted. Does what you see show that, she wasn't planning this? There's Nick walking back to the office. Tracy pulls around and drives right by the defendant. Again, they're almost bumper to bumper with Tracy. And then she lets about 20 seconds go by, her meaning Michelle, before she heads out after Tracy. And they show this pattern where she's behind Tracy by like 20 seconds. And at one point there's a car between the two of them. So they leave Vermeer at 7:35. 7:35 they arrive at Vermeer. They leave at 8:08. And then they see both vehicles leaving the gate 20 seconds apart. The delay is caused by the defendant not wanting her to see, right, that she's behind her. From there, they're caught again on church cameras. Again, with a 20-second interval. Again, the car between them. Tracy is driving home now to 101 Glenwood. And she pulls into the parking spot, and then they show the defendant is going to go right beside her. If all the defendant wanted to find out where Nick lived, and this is what they're saying, she did. She did. She did. Why'd she have to pull next to her? And then she could have watched the specific apartment. She could have watched Tracy get out of the car and go wherever she went, 102, 103, 104. She would know the specific apartment if she just sat there off in the distance. Why did she have to pull next to her if that she said she just wanted to find out where Nick lived so she could beg him to come home? But that was a lie, because she ambushed her. Okay, she pulled right in there, got out of her car, and pulled open the truck door. Tracy was still in the seatbelt. So, again, they're driving that home. She was upon Tracy. Tracy had no idea. And then they play a call from this Julie, who was a neighbor, who, I don't know, at one point she says, I just want this cleaned up. She doesn't sound like she's really, she just sounds like she wants this cleaned up. I thought that was a little bit strange. But she says that Michelle had, well, she didn't know Michelle, but the other person had blood all over her face, such a great amount of blood on her. She really didn't know what was happening. She did see someone throwing stuff onto the pavement. That's when she was emptying the purse. And then suddenly the 911, they hear police, 911 operators, I'm going to let you go now. Just wants to get off with her. So then, let's see. They start talking about how Tracy's hands were butchered in the struggle and how she got blood all over herself. And then they start talking about the cast off of the knife. And the medical examiner said, yes, there could be one stab wound, one thrust that caused all these injuries at the same time. And then how did this blood get all over? Well, they're saying in a couple of ways. Either Tracy could have been flailing her arms, her hands that were bleeding and everything, to try to get, she was actually pulling her hair and stuff. So that could have been cast off from her hands, or it could have been, they said, more than one stab. And when she was going at her, she was plunging the knife in and then like wailing it back out, and blood was flying off of it, okay? Unfortunately, they didn't have cameras in there catching anything like that, so they can only surmise how that got there. So, let's see. The gloves in the car, because she worked at the hospital, she hadn't worked at the hospital for 69 days. And they find it really hard to believe that she put those gloves on to go get chicken at Culver's. For what reason? In the hour she was driving around following Tracy, you're telling me she had gloves on that whole time. She's not wearing them for COVID. The binoculars she had, one cap is on the floorboard, showing that she used these things. They were not, not put away neatly in the case. She knows who she's following. She knows what she's going to be doing when she gets there. The finger off of the glove that's torn off, okay, on the floor matches the gloves that are found in the toilet. She admits everything. She cannot deny, and she denies everything else, is what they said. She had been stalking Tracy for an hour with the gloves on. On the stand, she said she was angry, and she was snapping. Remember, she was angry long before May 18th. And the final evidence supports malice and intent to kill. The knife, multiple sharp force injuries. One was the lethal blow. We know there were multiple injuries. Her hands are lacerated, her face cut up. What was her intent? You're allowed to look at the circumstances to infer her intent. She is not crying. That's my... she wasn't crying at this point. Yeah, I was very surprised she wasn't crying. She, at one point, took a little dab of her eyes, but she wasn't the basket case she's been, okay? And that's going to be really important with the verdict, too. Not one tear. She looked so mad. Her eyes were darting. She looks like she's taken it all in. Because I expected her when they said, she didn't go there to talk to her. She didn't go there to find out where Nick lived. And I thought she'd be like, anything. But it wasn't. It was just nothing. Multiple blunt force injuries caused the bruising, that bruising she had on her arm, which was really intense. So The prosecutor says, well, maybe she was reaching in the window of the truck and she was banging her arm as she was stabbing her, or, the attack was so bad, but that bruising was significant. And then there's that other neighbor, Mr. Rumberg, the one that heard him say, "He is mine." And Julie Kuiper, that's the one that made the call, said she saw Tracy going back and forth from the truck. Oh, excuse me. So, I'm sorry, not Tracy. Julie Kuiper did not see Tracy going back and forth from the truck, okay? She was seatbelted in the seat. Now, testimony from Julie said that the defendant was all puffed up, okay, after she killed Tracy, and then was going through and throwing her purse, okay, on the ground, supposedly because of the cigarette smell that was in the truck. And all of that is evidence of the defendant's guilt, okay? She doesn't call the police. She knows that Tracy is very badly hurt. She leaves quickly. She runs home. She washes her clothing. She gets rid of the knife somewhere. She washes off. But the blood is not going to wash off her hands ever, because she has this blood on her hands forever, they say. She's concealing the gloves in the toilet tank. We see her hatred of Tracy long before this happened. Her preparation, she picks the spot. She knows the spot she wants. She follows her. She's not going to attack her in Burger King. She's not going to attack her in Culver's. She's not going to attack her at Vermeer's. She knows where she's going to attack her. The state must prove all these elements. And if they do and you stop at first degree, that's it. You don't have to go down the list again. You don't look at these other and say, well, I think this one sounds more like it. No. If it meets the elements of first degree murder, that's where you stop it. Only if the state has not proven each and every element do you start to go down the list. The defense said it's not murder, it's manslaughter. But, everything you've heard so far, the state's proved the case on first degree murder, so it goes into that. I'm not going to go into the crazy. It was very, very lackluster, boring. Every time you're talking about the heat of passion, you're down to the fifth charge. So he said the fifth one is manslaughter. And does it sound like from the defendant's testimony that you would think this is a heat of passion? That is way below the first degree, is what he's saying. The stabbing in a heat of passion is specified that it's done solely by sudden heat of passion. If anything else, then it's not solely. So he went into a long discussion about what solely means, okay? Of course, she was amped up when she killed Tracy, but that passion was not solely what happened in the moment. And if it was not there, there was no problem. And then, hold on, I see her. It's not there. No problem. Then she. Okay. So when it's the passion, it's something suddenly happens that causes her to kill Tracy. And so when she stepped up to that truck, it wasn't something way before was in her mind. She was inflamed. It wasn't something Tracy did. It wasn't something in the passion there. Serious provocation is conduct that would cause a reasonable person to have a sudden and irresistible provocation to kill someone. What conduct by Tracy caused her to fly into such an irresistible and have this irresistible impulse to kill her? Because she was eating with Nick? Because she was kissing Nick? Because she was calling the defendant a crazy biatch? Because Tracy was trapped in the truck? The only point of this is that the rest of the instructions on passion, words alone cannot be legally satisfactory as a serious provocation to cover the heat of passion. The proven conduct in this case was that the defendant got out of her car and she went there and she started attacking Tracy. There is not justification for that defense in this case. People know you have a right to defend yourselves under certain circumstances with deadly force, but that's not this case. Tracy was completely oblivious. She had done nothing to threaten the defendant. The only person who defended herself unsuccessfully was Tracy. So what happened? Nothing to cause the defendant into an irresistible passion to kill. It was not an accident. It was not provoked by Tracy's conduct. It was premeditated murder. And then he goes on to say, look at sympathy. The defendant pleads that you feel sorry for her. She tells you she's depressed, that there was COVID, there's pathetic circumstances, okay? But what does the court tell you? It tells you that you cannot allow yourself to be influenced by sympathy. Prejudiced, you cannot, that's a prejudiced emotion. Don't feel sorry for the victim, and you can't feel sorry for the victim's family as well. Not only for the defendant, but also you can't, give them a guilty verdict just because you feel sorry for the victim's family. You can't do that. It's a two-way street. You are not to take in any feelings of sympathy, either for the defendant or the victim's family or the victim. Broken marriages are not excuses to kill. Sadness is not, and COVID is not. And then you have mercy. Mercy may remain unspoken. The defendant has thrown herself on your mercy. Please don't convict me of this because of my situation, because of what I was going through. But not 1 ounce of mercy did she show to Tracy. But please show mercy to her. That's not a defense. You cannot do that, okay? So you can't take that into consideration either. The police told her that Tracy was gravely injured mere hours after this attack. And what does she say? She says God works in mysterious ways. A statement full of mercy and intent that she's saying, I hate that woman, and that is why I did what I did, thanking God that she got her wish. Okay, so that's how he ended his first part. Then the defense got up. The thing with what we're asking you to do as a jury is unusual and different from most defenses that the defense attorney has to make, because this is not a whodunit. It is not. I think humans as jurors, it can be a difficult, and they're like, can you speak up? You couldn't even understand this guy first. It can be a difficult thing to accept that someone can kill and have it not be murder. But it can be. And that's the way it's been forever in this country. Manslaughter, in my mind, sounds even worse to me than murder. So, I don't know, there was something so slimy about, like, he's just trying to convince, like, manslaughter sounds worse. Yeah, because it's got the word slaughter in it, sounds pretty bad. Slaughter could even describe certain murders, there was blood all over the truck. There was blood all over the car. There's multiple cuts on her hands, marks on her face. Like you heard from the medical examiner, he said there was injuries to the hands and chest. It could have been from the same thrust. They can't say it's not. This is a case where Tracy had slash wounds and stab wounds and multiple sharp force injuries to the chest. Her head, scalp had dozens and dozens of wounds, and they will tell you that this is evidence of actual hatred or malice, even though the medical examiner says that it could be caused by one thrust. If it was different, if the facts were different, they would be arguing that this is evidence of malice or hatred. The word malice, some of the stuff he said didn't even make sense. The word malice, no one uses it. It's an old-timey word. When's the last time you used the word malice? And then he goes on to say, oh, what if you said something about so-and-so's mother-in-law didn't like the paint on her living room walls? And would you say something like, wow, you could just see the malice in her eyes when she didn't like that paint color? No one uses that old-timey word. No one uses it, not anywhere. And then he talks about balderdash and how they don't use that word. And so this is what he's going to talk about, that manslaughter has been around for a long, long time. And then he talks about John Adams and the Boston Massacre, and how with the Boston Massacre, the Patriots were throwing snowballs, and then the British soldiers fired back with guns and they killed people, and John Adams represented the British soldiers. And, he said, the concept of manslaughter has been in common law for a long time, and it's an Iowa law. And the fact that personal feelings and instructions You have been told to set aside your personal feelings, okay? You feel that they should receive mercy because they cannot control themselves because they were provoked. The story of this case is precipitated by someone who did not keep his oath, and that is Nicholas Boat. He says they were separated, but there was no legal separation. Much like Malice, there was no separation. So he's saying, the Malice doesn't exist and the separation didn't either. We talked about it with Mr. Boat. He told her, the wife, defendant, that there was another woman. They needed to talk. The next day he was gone. She was at work and he never comes back. It was not some mutual thing that they sat down to decide. There was no discussion. It was sudden, unexpected, and devastating to Michelle. Whatever adjective you want to use to describe it, seething, obsessed, of course that's how you would feel after being with someone for a period of time and the circumstances cause you to feel abandoned. One thing the state brought up were the gloves. When she put them on, when did she put them on? But guess what? She was terrified. But guess what? She testified and they didn't even ask her. Why didn't they ask her? He says, if the state wanted to know, why didn't they ask her? So all this case is about the discussion of blood and how much blood there was. And the prosecutor talks about the cast off. They did not bring in a blood spatter expert. Okay. They give you that the cast off could only come from the knife. But wounds leave blood spattering cast off. It could be cast off by a number of things. Could have been from the knife. It could have been from other things. Again, state's own forensic evidence does not support that it's being beyond one thrust to cause all those wounds. Could have just been one thrust. They went back. The medical examiner said that. The blood all over her face could have just been caused because she was moving the knife around. There was a lot of blood. It, doesn't mean that there were multiple wounds. When we say struggle, we're not placing any blame on Tracy. The issue is that what was going on in Michelle's mind, we're not talking about a mental health defense. He was all over the place. But it requires you to determine what was in their mind. As a juror, you have jobs. You have to make a decision about the case during the deliberations, what happened, what did not happen, define the intent of Michelle. Then number 2, you must make sure that everyone follows the law that the judge gives you during your deliberations. And he says, if you see another juror that's not following that, you could tell them. And if they don't, then you need to tell someone about it. You need to let the court know. Deliberation requires you to not only have your own opinion, but to listen to the opinions of others. You do not need to accept them or try to change another's opinions, but you have to deliberate. To deliberate on murder case, to determine if someone committed the murder or not. What Michelle did not have the ability to do is, or not for the manslaughter charge, or do you think there was premeditation? And I put right here, boring, lackluster, because I think I was falling asleep. You jurors have to ask yourself something about what has been done. Did the prosecution wipe out all reasonable doubt? You don't have to look for doubt. You need to look for truth. You have to get past doubt of the situation, so you start looking for doubt. So he's saying that the prosecution said, you don't look for doubt, you look for truth. The defense is saying, no, that's all wrong. You've got to start looking for doubt first. That's how you have to do this. So the jurors must be like, what the frick? You do have to look for doubt. This is not something you can ignore. You see, they either did rule that out or not. They get the last word in because that's the law. They get the rebuttal. So we'll return to the theme of Michelle hunting Tracy down, as they're saying the only hunter, Elmer Fudd. So here he brings Elmer Fudd in. That's the only hunter I can think of. She was not successful because describing Michelle as a hunter is absolutely ridiculous. What is the point of it? It's pointless. Wandering around, that she, and that occurred. Okay, so she says that, let's see, the hunting was a very premeditated plan. They say, look at the evidence. She did not remove the choker from her car when she got home. She did not walk around her car and clean the blood off. She didn't try to throw that stuff away and burn it. The toilet tank, and she hopped in the shower. You toss it in the toilet and you're going to hope it's going to stay there. So wouldn't you have a better plan if this was all premeditated, he says? And all the stuff in the car that she left there? One more thing. The keys had her hair in them. She left all that behind. And the car she leaves, there's a potting shovel, the rubber gloves, and unused that were unused from her employment. We don't really worry about what we touch. We didn't understand. So he's saying back then you worried about what you would touch. It would be obvious that she would have the gloves on. In the early days we didn't understand. Now we do. Now you don't find people with the gloves, but this was back then. You've got to think about it. And then he says fast food restaurants are still wearing gloves. Yeah, I hope so. They don't really wear around here. And they probably should continue to, he says, even when this is over. People were having gloves on is proof positive of premeditated intent to kill? No, he said. It's not. Now, the glove, I put this guy is so boring, I am falling asleep. The glove, this item is just another thing left behind. If it was a plan, if this was a hunter, this would have been executed better. Oh, and then he said, hunting in broad daylight. Who's going to hunt in broad daylight and try to kill somebody? Why not wait for the cover of darkness to exact the revenge? But you're powered by anger, and this is rage. This is someone that snapped. That's what Michelle did. It's not a mental health defense. The wording of the charge is manslaughter. It involves some stuff, a person's mental process. If you are the Hulk calming down from having snapped, okay, that's what she was like after. So she gathered up her glasses. She washed off the blood. She knew that she killed someone. She shouldn't have done it. Sympathy, mercy, and I don't want to sympathize with Michelle Boat and mercy. She did not deserve it, he said. She killed someone seatbelted in, and she drove off. This is not sympathy I ask you to consider. This is not mercy I want you to have for her. The state gives you a timeline, but there's a gap from the timeline before these calls and the Facebook messages asking him to take her back. What can I do to get him back so I can work things out with Nick? We believe the evidence has shown, and lack of other evidence, that it fits voluntary manslaughter. On May 18th, Michelle intentionally stabbed Tracy. Intentional manslaughter takes this all into account. Tracy died as a result. That's not in dispute. Stabbing is done solely for the reason for because there was sudden, irresistible passion that she could not get away from. The state cannot rule out that Michelle was stabbed solely from sudden, violent, and irresistible passion, from sudden, serious provocation. The state cannot rule out that Tracy's her physical contact with Michelle was a serious provocation. Clearly, this was not justified, and we're not asking for self-defense. So they start talking about Tracy yelling at her and Tracy flailing her arms at her being the provocation that threw, Michelle over the edge. They're not trying to judge Tracy. He keeps saying, we're not trying to blame Tracy. But this passion is something that a reasonable person under these circumstances could not resist. The fuse was lit when Michelle saw that kiss. And we're not saying that alone this could cause a reasonable person to do this, but that under all of these circumstances, when she opened that door, Tracy's words and actions caused this. And I'm not judging Tracy, he says again. And Michelle is dabbing her eyes at this point very slowly. And let's see. Michelle just wanted this to go away after it happened because she knew she should not have done it. And she knew that she snapped, right? She lost control and they were after her. She knew she did it. It is not that she was going to go talk to the police. She knew she killed or seriously hurt Tracy. She went into self-preservation mode. This is not to discount whether it was manslaughter and not murder. A charge is just a charge until the state proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. This is not what they have done. What they have proven is voluntary manslaughter. And let's see. She could not suppress the impulse to kill. She had a serious provocation to kill. And then, oh my gosh, he starts talking about the military and that when they're fixated on a target and it takes a long, chain to come down and say, okay, stop. Some of the stuff, it just didn't even make sense what he's talking about. When did Michelle have time to suppress that impulse to kill? With a woman she was interested in trying to find out about, who is now with her husband, when she is still married to him. She is now hitting her, yelling at her, smoking in the truck. It reminds her of Nick and all that she lost, and that they used that extra money, that they stopped smoking cigarettes to buy that truck. All of this is making her crazed, and she's not able to resist this because of all those things. But not judging Tracy. It's just the smell of cigarettes. Every sense was used for her to go over the edge. So the smell of the cigarettes, the sight of Tracy sitting in that truck that they saved their money and gave up smoking to buy, the all of that. She said, okay, sight, the sound of Tracy yelling those things. The feel, when she was hitting her. So it said she went through all of her senses, and she opens the door. Tracy hits her. The sight of the marital asset, the truck, Tracy, her rival, they're all the provocation that she needed under the circumstance, and that would cause any reasonable person to not be able to resist that impulse to kill. They had children together for 20 years that Michelle, relied on Nick for support and security, that he abandoned her while she was at work. She gets insulted and struck by a person who had taken Nick away from her. She wanted to see if Nick would come back to her. And do you think they will come back after she's committed murder or manslaughter? So he's saying this can't be premeditated, because all she wanted was him to come back, and she knew that if she killed Tracy, she wasn't going to come back to her. She got this delusion. This is probably all a delusion. Why would you throw it all away by doing this? Because he's not going to come back to you, okay? The DNA expert said it was inconclusive what was under the fingernails. We don't have photos to show how the cars were positioned. They were in literal feet of each other. The fight starts. The powder keg exploded. The fuse had been lit at Vermeer when she saw them kiss. It was burning down. There was no chance to extinguish it. But even if there was, whether can you make what is happening in your mind? Can you make it go back to before any of it burned? No. The serious provocation happened at the truck, and along with that, what happened, all those other things. The circumstances of Nick leaving, no work anymore, no money, the kiss, everything. She's looking at Tracy. She's being screamed at. She's being hit. Not blaming Tracy. Again, he says it's Tracy for anything. For this to be manslaughter. What Tracy did was justifiable and not wrong, but that doesn't make it murder. Now, the instruction 9, I think it says alternative theories instructions. You don't have to believe what was serious provocation. There is more than one route to the same end. As long as you all agree on the outcome, that's what the law does not care how you get there. Then it goes the quote about John Adams and the Boston Massacre. Okay, let's see. It might seem odd that a reasonable person could act like that without it being murder, but it is now reasonable doubt. The state always had. Hold on a minute. Oh my gosh! Hold on a second. Hold on. Hang on. Sorry, let me make sure that, I just want to make sure the sound is back on, because sometimes when I hit the mute, it doesn't come back on and I can't see the chat now. Okay, it's back on. All right, so I didn't remember what I was saying. The John Adams and the Boston Massacre, and you always have to give the presumption of innocence. Hang on a minute. This is crazy. Hold on. I'm getting like every interruption. Who is that? Sassy? Come on in, Sass. Come on. Come on, guys. Come on. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, you have to, it doesn't matter, you have to presume that she's innocent. Doesn't matter whether you like her or not. Doesn't matter whether you think she looks mean or cold. It doesn't matter if you think she sounds crafty or whatever you might have in your head. How many of us could say you were charged with murder in the first degree after you admitted you had killed someone? Only Michelle. She's the only one here. So she killed someone, and now the state is trying to say, we don't like this old-fashioned manslaughter stuff. It is murder. You cannot go around following someone, and one day they piss you off, you get to kill them and not get convicted of murder. This is wrong. This is manslaughter. You just can't say you don't like it. It goes on and on and on about this, okay? And I'm just going to, because this goes crazy about he goes on forever, and I just, there can be malice and it still be manslaughter, he says. The hatred started, one thrust of the knife. They can't say that the hatred didn't start that day. The medical examiner can't say it was more than one thrust of that knife. Even if 2 or 4 thrusts of the knife, that hatred is beyond any level of feelings towards a person. You cannot feel anything more than hatred for a person and be happy you are killing someone. Apparently, killing someone in any manner, even in self-defense, requires hatred or a feeling of wanting to stuff out the person's life as someone wanting to give them pain, slashing them, torturing them for their own enjoyment. This is not hatred, what she did. He said, this is the Hulk, okay, that was provoked, sudden rage, and it's violent, and there was no time to suppress it to kill her. So it compares her now to the Hulk. A matter of seconds, she grabs the knife, then she's dumping things out because she's still enraged over the cigarette smell. So she's throwing down the knife, but she didn't nobody picked up. And after all that, she goes into self-preservation mode. So she should have thought of her kids, her house, her dog before she killed Tracy. And the reason she didn't is because she didn't think about that stuff, because it wasn't premeditated, is what he said. She ruined Tracy's life. She ruined Nick's life. And she ruined her life because she didn't think. She was a slaughterer, not a murderer. And then goes back into this closing and starts to talk about the Tylenol, the cyanide, the trying to show that that's reasonable doubt, and if you knew that it was there, well, what's the percentage you would take a pill from the bottom? Would you give it to somebody else? And it was just insane. I'm not even going to go into that. That was just insane. So trying to go on that this is not beyond reasonable doubt to the manslaughter. The law allows manslaughter, and that is what we have in this case, and that's what they would suggest. Then there was a lunch recess. Okay, they ended. I put horrible closing argument. Worse than the state. Okay, the Tylenol murders as a reference to reasonable doubt. Elmer Fudd clip makes no sense. Incredible Hulk reference. This was all over the place. This guy was not focused. He wasn't clear. They did not make it clear either, the prosecution, in their first part at all. They did, the second part was better, but defense didn't make it clear either where the prosecution fell short. Okay, so now they have the rebuttal. The prosecution gets up and says Michelle Boat did not act because of some sudden, irresistible provocation. She was the provocation. She did not have to wait at that laundromat. She didn't have to wait at Burger King. She didn't have to wait 35 minutes at Vermeer. She didn't have to follow Tracy home. She didn't have to put on rubber gloves and grab a knife and put it through Tracy's heart. She said she wanted to see who was driving the truck. She had her answer, but she kept going, right? She wanted to see Nick. Well, she saw him at Vermeer. She could have gotten out. She could have talked to him. She didn't want to. Now she said, no, I want to see where he lived. But then when Tracy pulled into the apartment, she had that answer. But the moment that she puts that caddy in park and attacks Tracy, then it is not the result of some unavoidable circumstances. This is the result of plotting, premeditation. She told her, he is mine. Told Nick to tell Tracy that she messed with the wrong mama. Think of what she said. Decide if that is hatred. She assembled the tools she needed for the murder. They were all with her, just waiting for one final ingredient. That was opportunity. When she drove past and saw the truck, she knew she couldn't attack her in the Burger King parking lot. And there's also where she got out at the Burger King parking lot, which she didn't remember, got some stuff out of the trunk, which they assumed was the gloves and the knife. Tracy had to be alone and isolated and vulnerable before she was going to attack her, and that's where she was when she got into the parking space at the apartment. We can listen to the defendant's own testimony, and that's enough for first-degree murder. She could have walked away. Tracy posed no threat to Michelle that day. The knife came from Michelle. The reason Michelle could not walk away. Why? She could walk away. Tracy was seatbelted in through some sinister logic that she killed Tracy and think that her life could go back to the way it was. Ladies and gentlemen, you have not heard one bit of evidence that would cause a reasonable person to act the way Michelle did that day. It's not the relationship, it's not the cigarette, it's not the kiss. That is not something a reasonable person would not be able to withstand. When she arrived at that apartment, she got out without the knife, and she approached the truck, and there was a fight, and she decides to get the knife and comes back and stabs Tracy, who is still buckled into the seatbelt. Tracy never had a second to breathe. You would think that there was no pause. Tracy would have tried to stop this if there was. She would have taken the seatbelt off. When Michelle got out, she had the knife. That's what they're saying. So there's no way that she's totally lying about going back, because if there was that pause before she got the knife, Tracy would at the very least taken the seatbelt off. She could have put the car in reverse. She could have done a lot of things, but she did nothing because she didn't have that knife in the car. She had the knife in her hand. So that was like the most powerful part of it. So she had that knife with her when Michelle got out. It was all part of the plan. She is trying to hide as much as she can. Ladies and gentlemen, use your common sense. Please use your common sense. This is first-degree murder, and it's on the books for a reason. Michelle, with premeditation, malice, aforethought, and after deliberation, killed Tracy. And for that reason, the state of Iowa requests that you bring back a guilty verdict in murder in the first degree. Jury comes back right away. And she's sitting there. She's asked to stand. Guilty of first-degree murder. No polling for the jury. She's not crying. She looks mad. She looks like she's staring down the jury. Dry eyes. Remanded to custody of the sheriff. She's cuffed and led away. And the jury's told that the judge is going to meet them in the overflow courtroom. He seemed like a nice judge. But that is what happened today. So let me see here. Let me go back to see you guys in here. Did anybody else have anything to add? Shoot. Why are my lights so crazy orange? Hi, Mama Ames. Hi, Yorkill. I'm sorry about your Uncle Jeanette. They said they fixed the problem, so what's going on? Ori says, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I'm listening to what Mommy Ramblings is saying and has put a lot of effort into, and gas prices do not equate. Hi, Cara Lucy. Hey, Dr. Durham. Let's see, Emma, Debbie D, 10th Angel, Lisa Bennett, Angie. Thank you, Crystal Silverheart, for the super chat. 80s Girl, Your Kill, Jeannie, High 61, 10th Angel, Carol Lucy, Linda Uribe, Deanna, Lisa Hobbs, Deborah Van Coverdin, Joanne, Jeanette, Lisa Galkowski, Dare to Be Different. I haven't seen you in a long time. Dare to Be Different. Wow. Kathy, Angie, Marion. Wow, there's a lot. To Scooter. Okay. Sorry, I can't keep going up, so the chat was really flying, so that's Crystal Silverheart, Judy with an I, Backdoor, Susan Redding. I can't concentrate on the subject at hand either. Does anybody have any thoughts on the trial? I think she was heavily medicated as her face was stone cold and she didn't flinch at the guilty. Right, you're right, she was just, yeah. Did you find the platform the trial was broadcast on difficult? I could not rewind. Is there a better way to watch? That's court TV for you, yeah. I record it and then I'm able to watch it and rewind, but when she was being cuffed, she did look like she was staring down the jury. She did, to me too. We're talking about no gas and people being desperate here to find gas. Who has no gas? We were away, just got home, and I'm exhausted. Hi, Peggy K. I believe it was premeditated, Deanna said. Yeah. No, I agree with the verdict. I think I said last night and the day before that it's going to be first degree. I don't see how it could be anything else. Totally missed the trial. I'll have to try to catch up, Peggy says. It was a very quick trial. Very quick. I think she got what she deserved. No man is worth murdering someone over. Kim Miller headed home from work. Okay, so tonight, I haven't been here in a while and I haven't missed it. Thanks to Drama Dome. What did she get? First murder in the first degree, Tina Osborne. Virginia is running out of gasoline. Oh. Thank you, the Drama Dome. There's your cat. But facts are gloves and knife hurting Tracy. She won't see daylight. A stupid decision. She should have just taken him to the cleaners financially. How she thought she would get away with this is beyond me. So much against her. Martina McBride, Lisa Galkowski, thank you. Justice for Tracy and her family and friends. Yeah. Okay, and then, hi Carolyn, Easter Pipeline Company hacked, gasoline issues. Really, heavens to Betsy? Okay, I didn't hear that. It's the old toilet paper scare. need some sun and sand. Hi, Robin Lane. Carolyn, this U.S. is running out of gasoline due to a cyber attack. Carolyn, are there any other cases you're working on? Well, yeah, I mean, definitely Gannon Stauch's case and Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell. And then whatever trials come up, like this one, we just got off James Addy and Joshua Aid, now Michelle Boat. And then we always cover like, the true crime headlines and stuff like that. Drama Dome says, people, please make sure to hit the thumbs up. Thank you, Drama Dome. Now, tonight, North Carolina is out of gas. That's scary. Governor of Virginia called a state of emergency. How did that happen? They made it look like the numbers were there, and then they realized they didn't have it. What is going on? Along the eastern coastline are affected. Are you following the Wester trial, Hunt? No, I've been following this one. Where is that one? Is that on Law and Crime? But I'm going to talk about tonight the Philippi. Have you, Nikki and her husband, that whole dog situation? So I'm going to go through that It's So Sad video, and I already have, and made my notes about what they said, and then ideas and my views and reaction afterwards. So I'm going to go through that tonight when I come on. Are you guys familiar with that? Then have you watched that video? My daughter called me all about it. That's why she was calling me again about that. She told me I had to look at that video. You're down the rabbit hole. Okay, I'll have to look into it, Carol. No, they're not dog thieves. No, it's nothing like that. It's something quite bizarre. They apparently put their dog down. It was a very bizarre video, and it's a dog that they've had for years and years and years, and had always had the issues but I don't want to go into the whole thing because I have everything ready to go tonight with that, but you can look it up. She's been around for 10 years, but her views started to tank. Even though she's got like over 1 million subscribers, she wasn't getting a lot of views per day. Now the sensational story has thrust her in. People didn't even know who she was because she's, like I said, started 10 years ago. She was kind of a makeup person, turned into a lifestyle blogger, and then kind of fell out of popularity, and other people started to overtake her position. People didn't know about her, but now her name is right back up there. It's trending because of this dog story. So we'll look at that tonight and my reaction to that video and what I think is going on. Liza Ward, yeah. But yeah, my daughter called me up and she's like, because I had seen it, and I was just like, I was not going to get into that. She's like, you've got to see it. You've got to see it. I've got to know what you think. Yeah, the child adoption stuff. Yeah, she won't adopt from the Philippines because they won't allow the child to be shown on videos. Yeah, I have all my notes to do it. I'm going to do it tonight. No, heavens to Betsy, not really so much that it's talking about that as into just their actions, really, and how they handled this, and you know what I mean? It's driving me crazy. Oh. Be interested. Yeah, I have it all down, but I'll do it tonight. How do you find out when someone is going to trial? My husband's co-worker committed a triple murder on 12/25/19. He pled guilty. Well, look it up in the jurisdiction and see if you see any filings in the name. Sorry, but I will struggle to talk about these people. 70 states have received declaration of error for some workaround to prevent gas from running out. I've got to go. Good to see everybody. Thumbs up. Thank you, the Drama Dome. Let me see something here. How come the let me look at that gas. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so they are warning people not to hoard gas, okay? But you know people are going to hoard it, right? The people are definitely going to hoard it. Because that's what people do, like toilet paper. Colonial Pipeline, a major supplier for fuel to the southeast, remained largely shut down for a fifth day following a ransomware attack by hackers on Friday. Much as there was no concern for hoarding toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic, there should be no cause for hoarding gasoline, especially in light of the fact that pipelines should be substantially operational by the end of this week and over the weekend. A small but increasing number of gas stations along the East Coast reported fuel shortages Tuesday, with 6 states estimated to have gas station outages. Fuel demand for motorists has also jumped over 30% in the East in the past week. And this is NBC News, okay, that I'm reading from. According to the data collected by Price and Fuel Tracker at GasBuddy, Colonial Pipeline is expected to make a decision by the end of Wednesday on whether to fully restart the pipeline. Still, it will take a few days for the pipeline to ramp back up to normal production levels. The next few days are going to be challenging, but said that she wanted to encourage the public that things will soon be back to normal. We're asking people not to hoard gasoline at this time. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said Tuesday that he was preparing to temporarily waive the Jones Act, which would allow foreign flag ships and vessels to deliver fuel to the eastern seaboard should the need arise. That need is not necessarily yet confirmed, but we wanted to be poised at the president's direction to be ready and able to act immediately. The FBI said Monday that the culprit of the hack is a strain of ransomware called DarkSide, believed to be operated by a Russian cyber gang referred to by the same name. Yet, President said that Monday there was no evidence that the Russian government was involved in the hack. The attack sparked fresh fears about the vulnerability of the United States energy infrastructure to cyber attacks and raised concerns about the supply and price of oil and gas. Okay, so I would say that the best thing to do is not create a panic about it, because then people are going to hoard and it's really going to cause things to go out of control. They said that things should be up and running right by the end of the week. Panic buying is running stations in the region dry. See, it's the panic buying. It's always the panic buyers. Really. He warned that irrational behavior could prolong supply issues. So you got to stop. Why are they allowing them? There should just be a limit. That's it. You're not buying it. You're not taking, gas cans and filling them up. Just like they had to do in the 70s when they had to ration get odd and even, and you were allowed a certain amount, and that's it. So these people that just are gluttons causes all these shortages. Cat's out of the bag. But then they should not be allowed to purchase that gasoline. Why did the stations allow them to do that? I don't understand. It's going to happen because people, even if you tell it, but I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. Gallon drums in people's backyards. Why? I wonder if I broke. Oh, she was hitting her dog. People are people. Panic and greed. I know, but I understand country folk panic and be not city dwellers, yeah. One second, I'm reading something.
You live?
Yeah. Those kinds of people. It's crazy. But it's going to be getting worse because people are starting now to panic. Like, what? You can't panic now. You have to stop panicking. They shouldn't be allowed to hoard it now at all. Are all the stations saying they can't come in now and fill up? They should not be able to fill up any more gas cans and stuff. They're just going to have to ration it until, otherwise it's just, you're going to create a panic like this, and people that didn't know about it are going to go crazy, and you're going to have people killing each other and going to people's houses and trying to steal gas and all of that stuff. That's what I'm saying, that this is just going to, everybody's going to hype up this panic like crazy, and that's exactly what happened with the toilet paper, and that was toilet paper. Now you're talking about gasoline, and people are going to be off to the freaking races. I don't know, Heather. It sounds like a really dangerous situation to hype it, because people are going to kill each other for that. Really, they're going to come to people's houses. If somebody you say has a 50-gallon barrel in their backyard, they're going to start killing people over that stuff. Exactly, and my friend went to get their boat from the marina so it doesn't get drained. Yeah, and if they live in city, they're going to start siphoning tanks, I'm sure, just like in the 70s. Don't you remember in the 70s? It lasted a long time. You could only go if you had even numbers, odd numbers. You were only allowed a certain number of gallons. People were siphoning gasoline out of people's cars. And the more you tell someone something is scarce, the more they go and hoard it. So they're really going to have to, every vehicle owned has a locking gas cap. Just fill your car and don't drive all over if you don't have to. Right, Joanne? I love Manhattan. My dad was born in Brooklyn, and I used to have to go to Manhattan, but again, thanks for the lesson. Long lines for gas, I remember seeing that. Yep, and you could only go on it was even and odd days. I agree, I had a woman threaten me last spring because I grabbed the last pack of toilet paper and I wasn't about to die or be harmed over toilet paper. People are nuts. People are nuts these days. They are. Back on virtual teaching. I can't get gas. I remember that, sitting in line for hours in New Jersey. Went by the last number on your tag. Yeah, I remember that, even though I was a little kid, and I remember that. My parents were like, we can't get gas today. This way we can take this car for gas today and not that car. Shield soldier, just forgot about that. Kerosene being stolen. So then one day. What people started buying locking caps. I was a little kid, so I couldn't remember the details from the gas lines, just the long lines. Yeah, me too. But I remember clearly. You couldn't go. Why can you go to get gas? Odd and even that I remember, and the long lines and all the songs about it. Remember. Those records that used to have sound bites of like President Nixon and stuff cutting in about the gas lines. Some hacking, Carol, Lucy, but they said it should be straightened out by this weekend, by the end of the week and the weekend, and then everything will go back. Just a few days. Tommy McD. Heavens to Betsy. UK. Ames. I vaguely remember that. What happened to cause that? I heard in New Jersey gas prices by the summer will be around $4 again. Oh, shoot. I'll tell you, Mama Ames. Oops. Sorry. It was a 1973 oil crisis. America had controlled the price of natural gas since the 1950s with when the members of the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries performed an embargo. The embargo was targeted at nations perceived as supporting Israel during the Yom Kippur War. The initial rations targeted were, the initial nations, I should put my glasses on, and they're probably filthy. Targeted were Canada, Japan, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and the United States. with the embargo also later extended to Portugal, Rhodesia, and South Africa. By the end of the embargo in March of 1974, the price of oil had risen nearly 300%, from US $3 per barrel to nearly $12 globally. US prices were significantly higher. The embargo caused an oil crisis or shock with many short and long-term effects on global politics and global economy. It was later called the first oil shock, followed by the 1979 oil crisis, termed the second oil shock. In September of 73, President Nixon said oil without a market does not do a country much good, I'm trying to see. Lots of stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures from there. It's sorry, no gas. Sorry, no gas. Ask Nixon for someone. Thing says no gas. America out of gas in 73. The gas shortage of the 70s. Oh, the madness. The shortage and price hike were reportedly due to 2 major oil refineries being closed. Supply couldn't keep up with the demand. And let's see here. The price of a gallon of gasoline in 1973 was under 50 cents. By May of 1974, it had skyrocketed to over $4 per gallon. The shortage and price hike were reportedly due to 2 major oil refineries being closed. Supply couldn't keep up with demand, and everyone was scrambling to get the gas they needed, mainly so they could get to work. Vehicles of the 1970s were gas guzzlers, so a tank of gas didn't last long. It got so bad that people were regularly stealing gas from unattended vehicles. Yes. Let's see. Frustration grew, tempers flared, people were fighting both verbally and physically in gas lines. If a person got in line on the wrong day, it was easy to tell because of the license plate number. There was hell to pay. Normal, rational people turned into raging vigilantes in order to right that wrong. Professional truck drivers were not able to work at times because they were being limited as well. Obviously, this led to deliveries not being made to stores, which in turn hurt business of the store owners. It wasn't just a gas shortage, it was an entire economic crisis. It is said that necessity is the mother of an invention. The gas shortage created demand for more efficient automobiles with the public, so maybe everybody will get an electric car. Maybe somebody will probably argue that it's a conspiracy to make people buy the hybrids and things. Who knows? Or as Lisa would say, a conspiracy. Okay, let's see. It was a worldwide shock. It was crazy, yeah. Don't get crazy, because the people will kill you over stuff like this. The people are nuts today. Clean enough fire due to electric cars charging in garages. I'll never buy. All the prices are up on everything too. Lumber prices are up crazily. A hybrid for you and a hybrid for you. They should make electric cars cheaper. Well, there are some that are not that much, like the Prius and stuff. Trying to mind my own business. People are going bonkers. Yeah, I would be really careful. I would be really careful of even going to hoard it because I would be scared to run into some wackos in those gas lines. Don't go to hoard it. I might just end up getting killed for it. Lumber and appliances. Yeah. Prices are way up in Canada too, Shari says. Oh, thanks, Tammy. But anyway, we're going to go have dinner now. I'm going to be back with that Philippi tonight. I'll go over Philippi and then whatever else we want to talk about. But I hope you guys are having a good day. And maybe there'll be a short Lucy video. I don't know. It depends. My daughter is on me all the time about the Lucy videos that I got to get them up because she misses puppy. So, mental health crisis or at a fever pitch. Yeah, really, I would be scared to death. I'm serious because you don't know how people can get worked up. And I wouldn't want to work or whip anybody into a frenzy because they could end up, I think we should be just quelling things and try to get people under control, that it's okay, and they're going to get it revamped up, and it'll be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. It's not worth your life, Don't get killed over gasoline. It's not worth it. And it's really not. So, you ordered your hair color. Great, Susan. All right, everybody have a good evening. I'm going to see you later. Okay? Bye. I'm going to let the puppy in. I don't know if that's the puppy. No, that's Desi. I don't know. He's got some ball. All right, let me see how I have to get out of here. I have to go over here and end the stream. Bye, everybody. Love you. God bless. Stay safe. Don't fight over gasoline.